everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. So today we're going to talk more about Roosevelt's time in office and some of his interactions with the rest of the world, and really how the end of his time in office and his hand-picked predecessor really is going to fundamentally change the political makeup of the United States here at the end of this unit. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we need to talk about today is this thing called the open door policy with China. Now, technically this happens during William McKinley's time in office, but it connects pretty strongly with the same ideals that happened under Roosevelt, because since McKinley, who's going to be assassinated and Roosevelt will take over, they're going to have the same Secretary of State, which is a guy named John Hay. And he's the guy that's responsible for this situation here in China called the open door policy. So this is a picture of John Hay. So let's go back to this map here. So China, it's kind of pinkish here in the center of the map. America has been trading very heavily with China for a while. We also just fought the Spanish-American War, meaning America now owns the Philippines. The Philippines, right next to China, is where America is stationing half of our Navy at, because Alfred Thayer Mann wrote a book about the sea power over time. You never want your Navy stationed on your own coastline for strength. It's a whole strategy thing. Anyway, one of the reasons we put it in the Philippines is to intimidate China into making sure that we get favorable trade deals. Now, what ends up happening is the European countries had gotten very heavily into the concept of imperialism, where you just take over weaker countries. We talked about this. America had done this with Alaska, but more specifically with Hawaii. England had done it with South Africa and India. France had done it with Vietnam. We had talked about some of these. China has a ton of natural resources. While China has a ton of people, like 1 billion people that live in China at the time, they don't have the same quality of military that the European countries do. The only reason China hasn't been taken over is because it's so big. Any country that takes over China then has to manage 1 billion people, and it's kind of a lot to, to take over, kind of too much to chew kind of thing is the mentality of European countries at the time. So what happens is during McKinley's time in office, the Secretary of State is John Hay, is invited to go meet with all the European countries. Now this is big time, because America, we've been relegated as not as strong, not as intimidating, not as effective of a country as the European superpowers. But after the Spanish-American War and our prowess and clear military might, we for the first time here at the turn of the century get the respect from the rest of the countries, and we are invited to the cool kid table to go have a secret meeting about China. So John Hay shows up here at this meeting, and this is the different countries that show up. This is Uncle Sam here in the middle. And all the European countries have this secret agreement, this secret talk, and like, hey, what if we all take over China simultaneously? It's too big for any one country to take over and control. But what if we split up China into separate little sections and take over one piece individually, and then we each, have a section of China, and we can get the natural resources in that section of China. Now, obviously, China doesn't know that this is happening. China, while they are not military strong enough technologically to stand up to the European countries, the sheer size of it, it's almost like a pack of lions wanting to take down an elephant. You all got to work together, because one lion ain't doing it because the elephant is too big. This is kind of the approach taken with China, that everybody kind of has to sneak attack them at the same time so that they can't defend themselves. So America is brought into the fold with all the European countries at the cool kid table, and America immediately does not like this. The reason America doesn't like this idea of taking over China at different sections is, sure, America could take over one section of China, and whatever natural resources are in that section, America gets for free from then on. However, the other sections they have to buy from England, France, and they have to pay full price for the resources from China in the areas that England and France would control. The problem with that for America is we already get really good prices from China because we own the Philippines. So America, we straight burn bridges here. When we find out there's this secret attempt to take over China, all right, and keep in mind, the rest of the world that's not imperialistic thinks all the imperialistic countries are jerks, and rightfully so. So that's why this is secret. America comes out after the secret meeting like, hey, world, Europe wants to take over China. Not cool. And the rest of the world is like, what? Like, we completely betray the trust of all the European countries. They're like, America, what are you doing? So when the rest of the world turns on Europe and they're like, what? Are you trying to take over China, Europe? Well, what's Europe going to say once they get confronted with it? No, we were never going to do that. And China's like, were y'all? And Europe's like, no, we love trading with you. Why would we do that? America. And they're like super angry at America. So, Europe is looking at America like, why would you do this? And America's like, well, I got an idea. How about, since we're talking about China, and you guys clearly we weren't going to take it over, that would have been crazy talk, as you guys said. How about we sign an agreement in which no country is allowed to take over China? Everybody has equal access to China, and China gets to rule themselves. It's called the open door policy. And the rest of Europe, under pressure from the world, is like, sure, we will sign this. So this is called the open door policy with China, in which we sign an agreement with the whole world that nobody is allowed to take over China. We do this. China likes this, obviously, because they're not getting taken over, even though they just learned that they were about to be taken over. The reason this is beneficial for America is we already get beneficial trade because our Navy is intimidating them in the Philippines. So we effectively are kicking out the European countries out of China so that we can all trade equally, which really is going to benefit America because we already get favorable trade status with China. So the question here is, how did the open door policy with China both benefit China and America while frustrating European countries at the time? So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. All right, this is another side of the world. This is, so McKinley's been assassinated, Roosevelt comes in. America has a massive Navy, and as I have said, we don't like putting our Navy on our own coastline. So half of it's in the Philippines over by China. The other half is in Guantanamo Bay off of Cuba. So the problem is if we need to connect them and we need to join our Navy, they're on opposite sides of the world. If you want to connect them, you actually have to go all the way around South America at the time because there is no way of getting through North and South America, all right? So Roosevelt looks at a map and he's like, what if we had like a canal that connected North and South America? We wouldn't have to go all the way around the whole continent. We could just cut through. He looks at a map and he sees there's a really skinny country there below Mexico called Panama. And he's like, I wonder if we could like make a man-made canal through that whole country, and that way we could connect our Navy and don't have to go all the way around South America. So when he looks closer, he realizes this is a possibility because right at the skinniest part, there's actually a bunch of lakes there in Panama, which makes it possible to actually build a canal. Now, granted, this isn't a separate country and not America, so we actually have to go down to Panama and see if they will build this canal. So we roll on down to Panama and we say, hey, Panama. And we make a deal with them, all right? Or we try to say, hey, Panama, what if we pay you $40 million if you guys will build, and Panama stops us right there. Like, whoa. Hey, America, welcome. Glad you're here. Just FYI, before you spend all this time and effort talking to us about this thing, we don't actually own ourselves. We're actually owned by this country below us called Panama. Or sorry, they are Panama. Called Colombia. So you're going to have to talk to them because they make the rules on what we can or can't do. And America's like, oh, thanks for letting us know. All right, so we go down to Colombia. Now, here's the deal we give Colombia. Hey, Colombia, if you guys will build us a canal in Panama, and actually, we won't even have you guys build it. We will build it ourselves in this country of Panama. We will give you $40 million to do it. All right? Meaning, we give you $40 million, we build the canal. When the canal is completed, you guys, meaning Colombia, you can charge people to go back and forth with all you want. Just America gets to travel back and forth for free because our Navy needs to go back and forth. This is a really good deal for Colombia. And Colombia says no. Or I think we offered them $30 million, they wanted $40 million. Whatever our initial offer was, which is very fair, said no, they wanted more money. Now, the reason they did this is ever since the Monroe Doctrine, which says don't mess with the Western Hemisphere, America's basically kind of like we've been doing with China, aggressively intimidating them into making sure we get like the best deals on trade. So we've been jerks to these countries for a long time, and they've never had any way of retaliating against us. Now that America wants something, they're like, all right, here's what I want, more money. America feels disrespected by this, and Theodore Roosevelt, he says, nah. And he leaves Colombia, goes back to Panama, and says, hey, Panama, them Colombia guys are jerks, aren't they? And Panama's like, I don't know, haven't thought about it. Like, yeah, Panama's real jerk, or Colombia's real jerks. Don't you want to be your own independent country? And Panama's like, well, I don't know. And they're like, sure you do. You should fight Colombia and be your own country. And Panama's like, but we don't even have weapons. And America's like, here's your weapons. And it's gotten weird now. We're basically mandating that Panama declare their independence from Colombia so that we can force Panama to build us a canal. And Panama's like, but they'll beat us. And America's like, they're not going to beat you. We're going to surround Panama on both sides with our Navy to make sure that you win. So with the basically mandate from America that Panama declares war on Colombia, this is what happens. Colombia can't believe it. They thought they had a good relationship with Panama. And Colombia's like, what? They declared war on us? So Colombia gets ready to go fight. And then they see the United States Navy just floating here in the coastline on both sides of Panama and realizes America's being shady and there's no chance Colombia can win. So there's not a ton of fighting that takes place in this war. And Panama becomes their own country. When that happens, America says, all right, Panama, here's $10 million. Congratulations on being your own country. You need to build us a canal that we will own. We're going to be back in a few years to check on it. So while we had offered to build it and pay Colombia a bunch of money, when it came to Panama, we gave them $10 million and said, you're going to build it for us, not us build it, they're going to build it, and then we are going to own it. Not Panama, America will own it. Tons of people in Panama died building this canal because they were terrified of what America would do if they came back and it wasn't completed. But the Panama Canal does get completed, and it is extremely complex. So it takes years for it to get built, but once it does, America owns it, meaning we charge people that go back and forth through it, even the Panamanian people that go back and forth through it. It's crazy. But there's the issue here, instead of just building like a trench, like a dynamite blow up a big trench, the water level is different between the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, so you have to have these locks. And that's what these numbers are here, these locks that raise and lower the water levels as you go through. So there's like actual, this is it, obviously they don't have the water in it because they have to build it, but these big doors open and shut and they're waterproof, and the level of water raises and lowers as you go through Panama. This is probably the 1960s, and this is how it looked for a long time. So it was built by the 1920s, but this is by the 1960s, and they have since, because ships got bigger, they have updated it. It's still used today, and this is what the Panama Canal looks like present day. And you can see here how those different locks have different water levels. And that is the point of them. But yeah, they've expanded it since then. It drastically helped the United States connect our Navy from the Philippines and Cuba, so we no longer have to go all the way around South America. Drastically helps connect the United States Navy. Now, this is so messed up what we did to the Panama people that by the 1990s, which is not that long ago, America realized, hey, Panama, we were really mean to y'all when we made y'all build that canal. And they're like, yes, you were. So in the 1990s, almost 100 years later, the United States gives the Panama Canal back to Panama, so Panama now owns it and they can tax people that go back and forth through it. But yeah, we've apologized multiple times in history to Panama for this, because even by America's messed up standards, by some of the shady stuff that we do, that one, forcing them to declare war on Colombia, there's still hostilities to present day between Colombia and America for a variety of reasons, this being one of them. But now with half our Navy in Cuba and half in the Philippines, we now have the Panama Canal that can connect it. So the question is, why was the canal so important for America through Panama, and how were we able to have it constructed? So basically, explain that story to me, and then pause me. We'll move on. All right. So Roosevelt, wildly popular, right? He's getting the Panama Canal is being built at this time, wildly popular. But he promised when he ran in 1904 as the president. In 1900, he ran as the vice president. He wins, but McKinley gets assassinated. He becomes the president. When he runs in 1904, he swears, I'm only running for president once, not going to do it again. So vote for me. He wins huge in 1904. In 1908, he could have run again. There's no law saying he couldn't, and technically he'd only served one term. So he could run again, but he had promised the people he wouldn't, so he decides not to run in 1908. And everybody's like, oh, shucks. And they're like, well, who do we vote for? And he was like, vote for my good buddy over here, Taft. All right, so William Howard Taft is who Roosevelt says you should vote for. So let me tell you a little bit about Taft. So Taft's a big guy. We need to start with that. So Taft is an overweight fella, probably the first guy you would classify as overweight to be the president. So Taft is a very smart, very soft-spoken, very smart, legal-minded human being. So when Roosevelt, who's the complete opposite of Taft, and they're like best friends because Taft works in Roosevelt's administration, and Taft basically helps Roosevelt navigate all the legal stuff that Roosevelt has to go through. So these two guys are extremely opposite personalities. So Roosevelt goes to Taft and is like, Taft, I want you to be the president. And Taft's like, I don't want to be the president. And then Roosevelt's like, that's a bummer. But I tell you what, if you change your mind, come back and talk to me. So Taft, who has zero desire to be the president, he goes home that night and talks to his wife, who's here in this picture, and he basically tells her that he decided not to be the president that Roosevelt had asked him. His wife is like, ha, 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 no sir, mister. You're going to march your happy tail back in there tomorrow and you're going to tell Mr. Roosevelt you will be happy to be the president because you will be the president and I will be the first lady. So Taft's wife really wants to be the first lady. So Taft was like, oh, the things you do for love. So Taft goes back to Roosevelt and is like, oh, my wife says I have to be the president. So Roosevelt's like, hooray, fantastic. So Roosevelt campaigns basically for Taft. It's like, hey, y'all should all vote for Taft. Roosevelt was so popular that anybody that Roosevelt endorsed was going to get the vote. So, not surprisingly, Taft is going to win overwhelmingly here in 1908. Now, here's where the story gets not fun. The only reason Taft wanted to be the president, which he really didn't want to be, was because of his wife, who wanted to be the first lady. While he is running for president, Taft's wife gets sick and dies before the election. So Taft is elected president, but he doesn't even want the job. He is grieving over his wife that just passed away, and his presidency does not go well. So Taft, who is already a large guy and has been his whole life, gains a lot of weight through his depression. He kind of eats his feelings. and gets much bigger as the president, gets up to 350 pounds, which is at the time like incomprehensible large. People just didn't get that big at the turn of the century. So Taft is a big boy. So one of the most infamous stories of Taft is he lives in the White House and he takes a tub bath and gets stuck in the tub. Like the bath is over and he can't get out. I don't know if he's actually like suctioned in because he's so big, or if he just is the angles that he can't get out. But he has to like have like his some of the Secret Service guys come in and help get him out of the tub. This is an embarrassing situation, but hey, stuff happens in the bathroom. You don't want everybody knowing about it. Man, clearly one of those people that helped him out of the tub went and told everybody that Fat Taft got stuck in the tub. And you're like, oh, I'm sure people were mature enough not to make fun of him about it. Present day on Amazon, this is a book you can buy. It is like one of the most famous things of Taft is that he was so fat he got stuck in a bathtub. Like, you talk about bullying somebody, man, they were super mean to Taft. But Taft, knowing he's a big guy, he joked about it. He had a new tub put into the White House, and this is how big the new tub is. Now, which I'm going to give Taft credit here. So these are the guys that installed it. None of these guys are Taft. These are the guys that installed it. They took a picture of it. Taft approved this picture to get put in the newspaper because he was like, let's make fun. I was like, I shouldn't get stuck in this one. This thing's like the size of a swimming pool. So Taft, got made fun of for his weight. Again, the man is grieving his dead wife. But he does the best he can while he is in office. But it just gets worse for him. It's miserable. One of the things, there's two main policy situations that happen that go really bad for Taft while he is the president. While he tries to do more of the progressive stuff, is the other stuff that really hurts him politically. He comes up with this idea of dollar diplomacy, where if a country doesn't like you, you just give them money until they do. That makes sense. If you accidentally blow up a country's ship, oops, here's $500,000, our bad. In American mentality, that seems like that should work. That's not what happens when we start doing this under this policy. If we blow up a country's ship on accident, and we're like, here's $500,000, and they're like, there were 23 people on that ship, and we're like, 600,000, and they're like, they have wife, they have kids, they have families. So what are you doing? 700,000, and they're like, no, we want you to take responsibility for this, and they're like, cool, $1 million. We cool with $1 million. Basically, by throwing, because America has a lot of money at this time, by throwing money at stuff that we do wrong, it appears to the rest of the world that we're trying to not take moral responsibility for doing shady stuff, which is exactly what we were doing. So while dollar diplomacy's entire goal was to, find a easy way out of, difficult situations, it really looked bad to the rest of the world. Not only that, there was some scandals that took place inside his administration. So these two guys named Ballinger and Pinchot, which is a very intricate story. I'm not going to go into huge detail of it. Basically, one of the guys is embezzling money, and the other guy tattles on him to Taft. Taft, realizing Ballinger and Pinchot are two people appointed by Roosevelt, like his best friend, he doesn't do anything about it. So the embezzlement keeps taking place, the stealing of money keeps taking place from the government. So Pinchot goes to the newspapers and publishes it in the newspapers that Ballinger is stealing money and that Taft didn't do anything about it. This makes Taft look like a bad leader, and then Taft has to respond by firing both Ballinger and Pinchot. So when Ballinger and Pinchot are both fired, this is that on top of the dollar diplomacy. Really, America is losing respect in the world. Taft's best friend, Roosevelt, comes out and starts talking massive trash about Taft while Taft is president. Keep in mind, Taft didn't want to be the president. He's grieving a wife that has lost. Now his best friend is coming out and being very critical of him. Nobody's more miserable being the president right now than Taft. But this is a kind of how it feels. Is with the Ballinger Pinchot affair, like, Taft wants to, take out these two guys, but realizing Roosevelt still has such a big political presence, it's a difficult thing to do. So very tough situation all around for Taft here in 1912 as re-election is coming up. So the question here is, explain how Theodore Roosevelt went from being Taft's best friend to being highly critical of him during his presidency. So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. So the 1912 election is going to really change American politics. So Roosevelt was Taft's best friend, but he thinks that Taft is doing a really, really bad job. So Roosevelt comes back to the Republicans in 1912 and says, hey guys, sorry I left you guys with Taft. He's trash. I'll run for president again. Let's go ahead and do this thing. So while Taft isn't loved by the Republicans or the people, and Roosevelt is loved by the people, you would think the Republicans would be like, good, let's get rid of the Taft guy that's not effective and put Roosevelt in charge. The Republicans are only going to pick one candidate to run for president in 1912, and they choose to pick Taft. The reason is Roosevelt, while he's loved by the people, nobody can control Roosevelt. The Republican Party can at least control Taft. And regardless of whichever Republican you pick, they're going to win. So the Republicans choose to stick with Taft in 1912 and tell Roosevelt, appreciate your service, you're not needed anymore. Well, Roosevelt's like, nah, I'm still going to run. I'll just make my own political party. So Roosevelt creates his own political party in 1912 to run against Taft, his best friend, previous best friend, and it's called the Bull Moose Party. Now, no third-party candidate has ever won an election, but this is Roosevelt we're talking about. This is a very popular person in America. However, typically people either vote Republican or Democrat. This surprises Roosevelt in this election. He thought everybody from the Republican Party would start voting for him, but he's realizing it's getting more and more difficult to get people to vote for his Bull Moose Party than vote Republican. So he really has to heavily campaign and travels around the country campaigning in a crazy situation that happens right before the election. He is giving a speech. It's one of the last big speeches before the election. And he's up on stage and he's giving a speech. And this guy, crazy dude, comes up to the front of the stage, pulls a gun out, and shoots Roosevelt point blank in the chest. They grab the guy, they drag him out, and everybody looks up at the stage expecting to see like a dead Roosevelt. Roosevelt's still standing up on the stage, like standing. And he opens up his shirt and he is pouring blood. And he says, it's going to take more than a single bullet to kill a bull moose. And continues to give his campaign speech for another hour as his entire shirt and pant leg is soaked in blood. And then after he's done giving his campaign speech, everybody's like shocked. He goes to the hospital, has the bullet removed while giving an interview, and still makes his dinner reservation that night that he had with some of the media. If this man wasn't already a superstar celebrity, this man took a bullet to the chest and didn't stop. This does bring a lot of people from the Republican Party over to Roosevelt. Now, I should point out, how did he survive that? Well, you can see here in this picture, he's reading off a piece of paper. Sometimes he does that when he gives speeches. He had a really long speech. There was a lot of pieces of paper, and he wasn't reading it. He had it folded up in his jacket pocket with his glasses that he only wore when he was reading, inside a metal glasses case, inside the same pocket. When the guy shot him, it went all the way through the folded up piece of paper, the glasses case on both sides, the metal of the lens, and it just wedged, the bullet just wedged into his chest muscle, didn't even hit his rib cage. Now, Roosevelt didn't know this. He knows he got shot. He just wasn't going to stop. But, and this is the dude that shot him, and I'm not even exactly sure what the logic is behind it. This is an x-ray to show that where he had been shot at. So it makes all the news that Roosevelt has been shot. This is the shirt. all his blood. So what ends up happening is a lot of people that were going to vote for Taft is like, nah, I got to go with my boy Roosevelt. So half the Republicans voted for Taft, the other half voted for Roosevelt and his Bull and Moose Party. And what ends up happening is all the Democrats that everybody had ignored, they all vote Democrat. And for the first time since before the Civil War, a Democratic president has been elected in the United States. A guy named Woodrow Wilson. Because the Republican Party split their vote between Roosevelt and Taft. And Woodrow Wilson is going to come in and has an extremely important presidency that we'll start talking about next unit. All right, that's what I got for you guys today. End of the unit.